The CBC has begun to hire from the Cathy Newman School of Debate, and the Me Too movement marches on democracy itself. But I don't want to talk for too long. That's a fireable offense, and it's probably a hate crime.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh booted one of his MPs from caucus today. Erin Weir is out following an investigation into allegations of harassment.
The independent investigator found one claim of harassment and 3 claims of sexual harassment were sustained by the evidence. It was found that Mr. Weir failed to read nonverbal cues in social settings, and that his behavior resulted in significant negative impact to the complainants.
Now, we don't know the exact details of these complaints because the investigator's report hasn't been released publicly. But Weir says he wasn't kicked out of caucus because of the report's findings, rather for speaking out publicly about the allegations. So does he dispute or accept the report's conclusion? Erin Weir joins me from Regina. Hi, Mr. Weir. Thanks for being with us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
The independent investigator in this matter found that 1 claim of harassment and 3 claims of sexual harassment were sustained by the evidence. So do you take responsibility for your actions?
Now, I want you to stop for a second and really think. How are you going to answer this question? How would you answer this question? Are you going to accept responsibility for sexual harassment allegations? Would you say yes, you're responsible, or would you say no?
I do, and I would make the same distinction between those different complaints. So there was one set of complaints that was about me having been a bit slow to pick up on social cues in social settings, and I certainly apologize to anyone who I made uncomfortable by sitting or standing too close to them, or by speaking with them longer than they wished to speak with me. I still don't know who those complainants are, but I am willing to enter into conciliation with anyone who is interested in doing so. MP Christine Moore has made that request, and I agreed to it.
It's important to understand why Erin Weir has said yes, or at least why I believe he said yes here, is because of the way the legal system works in Canada, because of the way internal affairs and human resources work. He must admit that he's done something wrong before things can be reconciled. Denial is proof of guilt and deemed retribution against the accuser. These gag orders on the accused are standard practice in workplaces and universities.
So what about the 3 claims of sexual harassment that I should repeat, the independent investigators said were sustained by the evidence?
Well, those are the claims in question. That was the
Question by you?
I'm sorry?
Question by you?
Let me just get this straight. You're saying that we should organise our societies along the lines of white, postmodern, neo-Marxist, oppressive, crazy, harpy, radical feminist lobsters to dominate and exclude white women. But then I want to put
minorities too dominate.
Okay, sure.
Like they're in question by you because the report concluded that they were sustained by the evidence.
Oh, exactly. So what the investigator found was that I was sometimes slow to pick up on social cues, and that I sat or stood too close to people and engaged them in conversation more than they wished to speak with me. Now that's far from what most Canadians would consider to be sexual harassment, but that was the investigator's finding.
But do you take responsibility, I guess? And I ask because Mr. Singh's point, the reason that he gave for kicking you out of caucus was because initially you did take responsibility, you wanted to enter into conciliation, and then later, a few days ago, you came out with a defense that was had a political storyline, I guess I'll say, that seemed to indicate you weren't taking responsibility.
Sure. So I absolutely take responsibility and am apologetic with respect to the complaints about being slow to pick up on social cues. However, there was another complaint that came out publicly on May 1st that arose out of a legitimate disagreement about a public policy issue on the floor of the 2016 Saskatchewan NDP convention. I've made it clear to Mr. Singh all along that I do dispute that complaint, and I do believe that it's inappropriate for a former senior political staff person to use that type of harassment complaint as retaliation for a political disagreement. So
why would you come out, though, and make that defense when what you're saying clearly identifies who the complainant is?
Yeah, how dare you create a case to defend yourself? You're not even supposed to know who's accusing you. So how dare you tell the general public who's accusing you?
Well, what happened on May 1st is that the complainant decided to make her complaint public. So that would be the thing that would jeopardize confidentiality. Once the complaint was out there in the public domain, reported by CBC, I felt compelled to respond to the complaint, but I was very careful not to identify the complainant.
When you came out a few days ago, you were very deliberate in saying this was politically motivated. That's what it sounded like, and that was your defense at the time. So can you understand how Mr. Singh would hear that and then think, this guy is not taking responsibility for his action at this point? How can I keep him in caucus?
Sure. So on May 1st, I was responding only to the one complaint that had been made public. And that complaint was politically motivated, and it was about a disagreement on how the federal NDP approached the issue of carbon pricing. So
you don't take responsibility for that complaint?
Well, I take responsibility for my actions and for the position that I took on that issue. But I think it's legitimate for MPs to speak up on issues and sometimes to disagree with their party leaders on those issues. So that complaint, which the complainant made public on May 1st, is quite separate from other complaints in the report that are about being slow to pick up on social cues, for which I take responsibility.
What are you doing to fix your behavior? I know you called yourself a bachelor, but clearly to these women it was something more than just a regular advance. So what are you doing to fix your behavior?
And when are you going to stop beating your wife? With the horrible things this guy has done, it's a wonder they allow him to walk free. Arguing with a female MP over the pricing of carbon taxes is clearly harassment. This man's career is over. Put him in a tower or a gibbet. Do we have gibbets? We need to bring back gibbets. You know a witch is guilty when they won't admit their sins. Of course, the sentence for that confession is still death.
Well, a month ago, I voluntarily completed harassment prevention training. I also agreed to undertake more training because I really do welcome opportunities for self-improvement. I've offered to participate in conciliation with any complainant who chooses to do so. MP Christine Moore has requested mediation, and we've both been in touch with the mediator to set that up.
And what about your party status? Will you remain sitting as an independent, or are you going to fight to get back in the party? It didn't sound like there was much chance of that for Mr. Singh today.
Well, I'll continue serving the people of Regina Louvain in any case, but Mr. Singh's initial reaction to the report was to reinstate me, and I believe that is the only just outcome given the nature of the process and what's actually in the report.
Okay, I'll leave it there. Thanks for your time, Mr. Weir.
Well, thank you.